Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today. Today is July 17th, 2024, and we're glad that you're with us today. There's about 4 or 5 things in July space history that are all coinciding on this date in history. So we're going to have a cool mashup for you that involves the planet Pluto, involves the Apollo Soyuz Test Project, a little bit of approach and landing tests in there, or the shuttle era, and of course a lot of Apollo 11. In fact, I'm going to take you to the Monument Park in Spaceview Park, the Apollo Monument, where beautifully celebrated the Apollo era with all the space workers' names around it. So glad that you're with us today. I'm looking at my smart tablet to see if John Barella is watching there. He probably is. John, great to see you out there. Takes a couple minutes. So I push the live button there. There we are. There's my July mashup there. So I'll be able to say hello to you folks out there watching today. And if you got any comments or questions or corrections, please do that for me there. We got Marty Winkel moving me around on the camera. Great to see you today, Marty. We've got Logan Cope, our intern from Eastern Florida State College, helping us. I believe you've been doing it about 3 months, haven't you, Logan? So he's been a real good asset as Marty and I are in the 1,090 episodes. All right, we're almost 1,100 episodes in 4 years because of you wanting to see Stay Curious and Stay Curious. So right behind me here, some of you know what that is. Some of you might not know what that is, but that is one of the most fascinating bodies in our solar system that we saw for the first time this month in July in 2015. So is that enough of a hint for you? We'll get to that in just a second. Thoughts and prayers with our executive director, Karan Conklin, who's battling cancer. And we certainly hope that she can overcome her situation there. But she's at home with her husband and her beloved 3 Yorkie Terriers, little Yorkie Terriers that she just loves to death. And Karan, we're thinking of you every day and hope that you can get well. Good afternoon to you, Mark Usiak, and Doug Forrest says hello to us. We want to thank Dr. Al Kohler for being on the show yesterday. He was in the launch room he's in launch control for Apollo 11 when it happened 55 years ago yesterday. You can get this book for free. It is an outstanding quick learner with a lot of pictures about the space program from the beginning of Cape Canaveral to even what's happening now with SpaceX. Dr. Kohler, thank you so much for your participation with Stay Curious and supporting Stay Curious. And go back and watch this conversation we had with a really great man. We've interviewed him before. He's been part of our museum all 20 decades that we've been out there. And this is a great little read for any age. And you can download it for free right there. So, all right. And yes, that is the spacecraft New Horizons. And that is a concept of what Pluto might look like before they went to Pluto. All right. But this is one of the most exciting missions in NASA history in many, many ways, and has nothing to do with Disney or Pluto the dog. It's all about Pluto, the planet, just 1,400 miles across, smaller than our moon. The last planet discovered, Planet X, for many years. Now we're looking for a new Planet X out there. Don't know if we'll find it or not, but there are some things perturbing the solar system that we will get our hands on gravity-wise sooner or later. But Pluto was demoted because there were a bunch of other objects that were even bigger than Pluto, like Eris, and Sirius is in the asteroid belt, and Vesta is another asteroid that's quite large. Hauma has a shape of an egg, and Makame is another object that was just about the size of Pluto, very interesting, in an area called the Kuiper Belt. This is an area where solid bodies that are mostly ice dwell, and Pluto lives in that Kuiper belt. So they demoted it to a dwarf planet in 2006. A lot of people lost their minds over that, but you know what? That just made Pluto more special. And it was demoted before the New Horizons flew by in 2015, 9 years ago. Pluto has an orbit from 2.5 billion to 5 billion miles away from the sun. All right, it's a very elliptical. It's out of the plane. If all the planets are orbiting sort of in the plane of this sheet, Pluto goes way above the sheet and way below it. We've known that for years. A 248-year orbital path, all right. But its eccentric orbit actually brings it closer to Neptune for about 30 years, which it was in the 70s till about 1990. However, they'll never hit each other. So we sent New Horizons out there to tell us new things about Pluto. And the encounter was on July 11th, 2015. And this is kind of the angle it went through. It went through as the 5 moons, small moons of Pluto. It's like a bullseye it went through. So it's very amazing. There's the path it went through. Okay. Pluto, of course, the god of the underworld. So all of the moons are named after underworld figures like Styx and Karan that were the guards of Hades, so to speak. But interestingly, it went through like that. But in 1930, okay, a 9th planet discovered on the edge of the solar system, first found in 84 years when Neptune was discovered by telescope, okay, by the mathematical perturbations where they were going on with Uranus, and something had to be affecting it. For 25 years, we've searched for this planet X, and this is the New York Times, by the way, and then half a century later, the New York Times reports 2 other wonderful headlines. One in 1965, the first pictures of Mars indicated it lacked a liquid core like Earth's and was more like the moon. That was very disappointing. In 1965, learned about Mars. And then we learned about Pluto, that it is an incredible world of 380 below zero nitrogen that acts like solid ice, and that's what the mountains and even slushy like lakes of Pluto are all about. And no craters, which means it's very fresh. That this action on the moon on Pluto is very new. I'll never forget getting my weekly reader in the summertime, and you baby boomers remember weekly reader, and we get it, I think, once a week, I think, yeah, and it'd have science and all kinds of things in it. Just ate that up, and I ordered this book, The Search for Planet X, for 60 cents from Weekly Reader, okay, and there it shows you in the arrows how it was discovered. Little did I know I would meet Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer, years later. Have his picture on the wall up here, in fact, Marty. There's the discovery of the planet Pluto. Was made by comparing images taken 6 months apart when the Earth was on the other side of the sun, and we would see things move across that were in our solar system. And that's simplified what the blink spectrometer did with the patient Clyde Tombaugh, shown here in this poster that I have on the wall up there, signed by Clyde. He kind of had a big hit era in the 90s where he did a kind of a press tour before Pluto was demoted in 2006. Around 2000, 2004, he was in good health, lived in New Mexico, and went around to universities and so forth, signing this poster. So a great guy. I met him several times, very humble man, but he was also involved with the optical systems that tracked launches of rockets out at White Sands in New Mexico. He was a real pioneer in some optics of tracking satellite launches so we could know the anomalies. Let's get back to Pluto. This was the best picture we had of Pluto in 2006 from the Hubble telescope. didn't tell us much. We could see 3 satellites and Pluto as a disk. Keep in mind, light traveling from Pluto to Earth takes about 5.5 hours. Okay. So a big plan was we need to understand the only planet at the time close up that we've seen all the other planets. Voyager 2 went out to Uranus and Neptune and gave us our only pictures of those in the 80s. And this was the incredible view that scientists have put together from all the data of Pluto. Pluto has a greater color variation than any other planet on the solar system except the Earth. One of the most contrasted bodies, black, dark orange, white, blue, all right? This is all artifacts of frozen, 350 below zero frozen nitrogen. Now, as I breathe in our studio in American Space Museum, 70% of what I'm breathing is nitrogen, 29% of it's oxygen, and the rest is 1% is other elements. So nitrogen, if I could freeze that nitrogen to 350 below zero, this is what it's going to look like. And in the middle is they named after Clyde Tombaugh, called the Tombaugh region. And there's just all kinds of things going on here. In a brief flyby at 30,000 miles an hour, so dim, going so fast, yet New Horizons was prepared to take incredible photos like this one of the atmosphere. Yes, there's an atmosphere of on Pluto that is nitrogen, methane, and carbon dioxide in layers. We couldn't believe it. Well, what's going on in this frozen world out there? They just thought they were going to see a ball frozen like many of the planets of Venus, or Jupiter and Saturn. This, in fact, is a lake area that's more like a slush that you would buy at 7-Eleven, but a slush of nitrogen. And these mountains, no craters, so the surface is probably less than 100 million years old, because something is constantly replenishing the surface. And there's these big cells here. These are like big ice sheets on Lake Erie up there where Dave Stange's up in Michigan. And these ice cells there are in their own an anomaly that can only be created by heat coming up from the bottom in creating this hexagonal things. And then the shores of a nitrogen mountain range are right there. I could go on and on about the beautiful things about Pluto, but there's the Earth in size. They should have the moon. It's just a little smaller than the moon, okay? Radius is from the core to the edge, so times 2, it's not even 1,500 miles across. Our moon is 2,060 miles across, something like that, and our Earth is 8,000 miles across. Karan, its moon is a fourth of its size. That's the same ratio as the Earth to the Earth's moon. The Earth's moon's a fourth of its size. This dark area at the pole up there is something where they think Pluto and Karan are exchanging material across a void of about 100,000 miles. And then you got the other smaller represented just by dots there, moons of Jupiter. Say Pluto's a planet one more time, and you're going to get it from Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy, who stand by. They're not even nostalgic about it. Of course I am. Never forget Pluto is a planet from 1930 to 2006. It is one of the most interesting objects in our solar system and deserves for us to go back and see it. First seen in the month of July on the transmissions that we were just getting back right now in the middle of July as we celebrate Apollo 11 55 years ago going to the moon, and a whole bunch of other things that I've mashed up together here, like Skylab. Skylab came down on July 11th, 1979, launched on May 14th, 1973. As of right now, Marty and Logan, Skylab is the only space station operated exclusively by the United States. All right, nobody else visited it, no other international partners. And then, of course, we've had 22 years of continuous occupancy with 17 international partners on the space station. Let's see here. We want to talk a little bit about Skylab, the wonderful crews there. Three-man crews were put up. Skylab 1, 28 days in May 73. Skylab 2, July 28th it was launched. So the end of July we'll celebrate the second crew going up there. That was the first cruise, Conrad, Kerwin, and White's. White's and Kerwin's only flight. Of course, Conrad, a moonwalker. And then Skylab 2 had Al Bean, the moonwalker, and actually moonwalked with Conrad. So that's interesting that the two Apollo 12 moonwalkers were commanders of the first two crewed Skylabs. Then Owen Garriott and Jack Lausma. Garriott never flew again, but Lausma commanded two space shuttles. And then in November of 73, going up for 84 days, Skylab 2 was 60 days. Skylab 1 was 28 days. And then 84 days, almost 3 months, was Jerry Carr. We're going to see a picture of Jerry Carr here, taken 15 years ago at the dedication of the Apollo monuments. Ed Gibson's alive, and Bill Pogue has passed away. Only Gibson, Lausma, and Kerwin are alive of our Skylab astronauts. Did you know who the backups were, Marty, for the... Oh, no, I'm going to tell you about the backup for Apollo Soyuz Test Project. Did you know that canceled was Skylab 4, a fourth crewed mission with Vance Brand, Bill Lenore, and Don Lind? We're all rookies. We're going to make a 20-day mission to boost up Skylab with the engine of the Apollo command module, but that never materialized for some reason. Tell you some more about it. There's the reentry, July 11th, in space. Someone's picture over Australia and remains there. What are we talking about in space history? Well, we're going to see here that the alternative history, Apple TV's original series For All Mankind, those of you that watched that, I did not, depicted the use of the space station in the first episode of the second season, surviving to the 1980s and coexisting with the space shuttle program, and we certainly wish that had happened. In 2011, the film Skylab, a family gathers in France and waits for the station to fall out of orbit. In 2021, an Indian film, Skylab, depicted fictitious incidents in a Telangana village in Western Australia preceding the disintegration of the space station. And a minor storyline of the 1986 film Dogs in Space is an attempt by characters of the Melbourne household to fabricate pieces of Skylab. The plot was a Melbourne family fabricated pieces of Skylab to win a radio station's competition to locate debris that fell to Earth in Australia. That's loosely on a young man in Australia. The San Francisco Chronicler offered a reward to someone to bring to their newsroom the first piece of Skylab, and this kid did. Flew on a plane just without even any suitcases or anything, and won several $1,000s. It was significant. I think it was 10 or 15,000. So, and then of course we have not left you out, our good friends. Oh, I have left you out. Where is it? Oh man, I thought I put in the Skylab pictures there of the Skylab DVD. I supposedly put in there. Sorry if wait, I see my glasses here. We got the ASTP going here. Sorry that I didn't put in there Searching for Skylab, a DVD released in March 19 by our friend Dwight Stephen Bonecki. He wrote and directed it, and his wife helped him with that. And they're good friends of our museum. I'm looking for it here. I have it laying around here, Marty, in front of me. The Skylab DVD. I may have set it up here. That's okay. But David, we hadn't forgot about you. What an excellent CD. I thought I'd lined up the slide for it, but nope. It didn't show up on our transmission here, so. No, that's the Dogs in Space up there. So anyway, a lot of space history with Skylab coming down. It was an event in 1979 that those of us who lived through it will never forget. Well, what happened on this date in history, in space, changed life forever between the two superpowers of America and Russia, as the handshake took place between Alexei Leonov, Russian, and General Tom Stafford on this date, July 17th, 1975. There's the cruise of Apollo Soyuz, the first international crewed mission, carried out, of course, by the U.S. and Soviet Union. Millions of people around the world watched on television as an American Apollo spacecraft docked with a Soviet Soyuz capsule. There's the launches of them respective there. The handshake in space was a symbol of détente. You don't hear that word very often, but that was thrown around. Peace, peaceful coexistence, détente, between the two superpowers during the Cold War. Officially known as the Apollo Soyuz Test Project, ASTP. Apollo was launched July 15th and landed July 24th. Tommy Usiak was there. Heard that he had a foot injury, Marty, and hope that you get well from that there, Tom. Call you later today. Soyuz 19 was launched on July 15th also and landed on July 21st. Now, who was the principals involved here? Let me see that I got my artwork lined up there. Left to right in the papaya suits, if you would, there. If you're a McLaren F1 fan, I guess we'd call that papaya, wouldn't we, Steve Jokums? Orange, burnt orange there. Stafford standing up. This was his fourth and last mission. Of course, a great Gemini pilot, and then Apollo to the moon on Apollo 10. Seated to the left is Deke Slayton, his only flight. Of course, Deke was the chief of the astronaut office for nearly 20 years, wielding great power in choosing crews, and he just put himself on it. He was a Mercury astronaut that had a heart murmur, and 20 years later, he says, I'm the boss. I'm going on the last crewed mission of a Apollo command module. And then that's Vance Brand on the right there. Vance, a good friend of our museum. His first of 4 missions to space. And then you've got Alexei Leonov standing up. This was his second flight. Alexei was, of course, the first human to do a spacewalk in 1965, just months ahead of the spacewalk of Gemini 4 and Ed White. But Alexei Leonov was also training to be a moonwalker. And Valery Kubasov, seated there, he had his second of 3 flights in space. He was I think he went up to a Salyut space station for a couple months. So let's see. They've all. Vance Brand is still with us, and Vance is 92 years old to tell the tale of the handshake in space. Though they took a crummy picture of it. There's General Tom Stafford shaking the hands of Alexei Leonov. Right there's their handshake. They become lifelong friends. They hunted together. Of course, from Oklahoma, Stafford was. And Leonov would go to Oklahoma a lot on hunting trips. They'd hunt all kinds of things in Texas and Oklahoma. And Leonov jokingly said that he didn't know how to speak American. He spoke Oklahomski. I think he said Oklahomski is what he talked, was not American. He talked Oklahomski with an accent like Stafford had taught him. We just lost General Stafford very recently, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him, and just an honest, warm guy. He really wanted to know what was on your mind. So, and there's Deke Slayton in the tunnel there. The docking hatch was quite a thing built, okay, and so much that there's the docking hatch that was built. That the Americans built it to dock to anything that Russia or America would put up there, and wouldn't you know it, had become the model for the International Space Station. Without this mission in 1975, 49 years ago, we probably would not have the cooperation that we have with the International Space Station and our Russian partners here. This was the springboard for the Mir space station dockings, and then, of course, the International Space Station. So let's see who knows out there. Happy International Handshake Day from Colorado. Thank you very much. Didn't know they had a name for that. Mitch Rothman of Manned Space. I guess why not? Happy International Handshake Day. There it is. Hello, Gary Gerald in Georgia. Kerwin was the first medical doctor to fly in space. Thank you, Mitch Rothman. He's our manned space Facebook pager there. Hello to Robert Law up in Dundee, Scotland, enjoying his Wednesday night evening up there. And we know we're going to hear from Cliff Watson in Pomona, Australia soon here. So good tip there on Kerwin there, Mitchell. I forgot he was the first medical doctor to go to space. So where is the command module for ASTP? Where's that Apollo command module at, guys? Marty, you got any idea? I'll bet Doug Forrest knows. There's a clue.
I can look it up.
It's at the California Center there, the California Science Center where Endeavor is. And the Energia Museum in Moscow has the Soyuz 19 there. So just thought you'd like to know, because I know you're probably staying curious out there, Chris Callie. And we're going to hope that Hazel Banks is watching today. And she says, yep, that's Mark, mashing up everything. Just mixing it all together and getting it out there. Well, let's mix up a little approach and landing test. I put as a tease of today's show, Doug Forrest's beautiful pencil of these shuttle carrier aircraft, the 747 converted to that. But on this date in history, on the a whole crew of NASA people, over 100 of them, were out at California at Edwards Air Force Base to do the all-out capture as well as release of the first shuttle to fly, which of course be Enterprise, named after Star Trek. The Star Trek people wanted it named that, and they got their wish. There's the shuttle aircraft carriers, and releasing it. So the third capture of the third active flight, captured but not released with pilots in it, was on July 26, 1977. Fred Hayes and Gordon Fullerton flew that. And then August 12th, 2 weeks later, they did the first free flight, which I believe is the one shown on the top there, and landed it. Before they had taken it up and just got the feel of how it flew on top of the 747, they could get characteristics and data off of it there. So very important program, the summer of 1977, approach and landing tests. And we are hoping to have Bob Seek, who is involved with that as a NASA manager. Bob, of course, launch director for 37 shuttles. And Bob calls that the happiest years of his NASA career were involved with the approach and landing tests when he had to take his family, two teenage boys, out to California. As NASA just took everyone over there, put them in a condo, I think, and they lived out there for like 9 months. We'll hear all about that from Bob Seek one day here towards the end of July. All right, folks, I thought for a little extra to talk about the Apollo 11, I didn't put up there that the follow it live on Apollo Real Time, like I'm doing. I've got it on my computer here in the studio at the American Space Museum. About an hour ago, Mike Collins was describing the Earth from 110,000 miles away, saying, I wish I had a better vocabulary because I can't hardly find the words to describe what I'm seeing. And he saw the western part of America all the way down to South America, Terra del Fuego, where you go around the South American tip down there. He said he could see Spokane and Seattle, Washington. Just amazing to hear these astronauts who are no longer with us, except Buzz Aldrin, who's 95, talk about their voyage outbound to the moon. They're about 120,000 miles away. They're still going to go into orbit on Friday, and then Saturday afternoon will be the big time to be listening. And if you're cooking up hamburgers around 4 o'clock, put on Apollo Real Time, as you'll hear the moon landing at around 4:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then the moonwalk starts 11:30 Saturday night. So I know I will have it on and reliving it just like I did personally 55 years ago with awe and wonder of what was going on in man's greatest adventure. So to honor man's greatest adventure, uh, the four founders of the American Space Museum and our foundation called the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation, they put together a park. Here is the Apollo Monument, and you see in the distance the shuttle. These pylons with names on them have people like Marty Winkel, who worked for Grumman and then later as a contractor for United Space Alliance and whoever else he worked for, Marty. Gave us $100, and that's what you see on there, the names. And on the slanted areas in the gray are the astronauts' handprints in bronze, over 30 of them. We've got that at Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. The Mercury has the names on bricks. Gemini has them etched on the side wall of the monument there, the two for the twins. And here is a beautiful thing put together with President Kennedy, a bust of him, so beautiful and accurate that when Caroline Kennedy, his daughter, saw a picture of it, she wanted to buy it. But they'd already broke the mold, and this one was not for sale, by Sandy Storm. And did I put a I think I got a picture of Sandy in here. Here is how it looks today. And the A for Apollo with the Earth and Moon on the other side are surrounded by a dozen bronze relief plates that tell the story, and I'm going to show each one of them briefly. There's Neil Armstrong's handprints there with a picture of him and the names of workers up the side. Here's another look at how these reliefs of the story of the Apollo are told on there. So cool and so beautiful. There's Sandy with Karan. Sandy in our office a few years ago there. She frequently comes to the Astronaut Memorial and some other things. The Apollo Monument groundbreaking was held on July 16th, 1999, precisely at 9:32 a.m., 30 years after liftoff of Apollo 11. And it kicked off a week-long 30-year anniversary celebration of Apollo 11. And then it was dedicated in May 2007. And then April 17th, today, 2009, they had a big party for the finished product. Look how beautiful it is. That's looking towards the east. That's looking towards the west. And there is looking towards the northwest. 15 years ago, Marty. There's the condos, 3 big 10-story condos behind there. They've got the plaques covered up here. Here's the dignitaries and so forth. We'll see a few of those. The unveiling of this beautiful masterpiece. How proud Sandy must be of this. A man named Warren Lackey, who picture I don't think I have in here, was also responsible for setting this up and making it the way it is. That might be Warren's head in the background there. And there's Dr. Al Kohler pointing out where his name is on the pylons there. As out there, and everyone's so proud that they could be part of this program there. So there you've got Jerry Carr in the foreground that we talked about, the rookie commander of the last mission to the Skylab. Al Warden, affectionately known as Uncle Al, right there in the middle. Don't know who's beside him. That's Jim Tully, the mayor at the time, Marty, in the tan jacket. You know who got any idea who that is beside Al Warden?
You know, from a distance it looks like Charlie Mars, but it isn't.
Yeah, no. There is Jim Tully with Jerry Carr. There you see Al reposed up against there, and Big John McBride. All right, I may show some more pictures of this later on Facebook and so forth. But quite a big mosh pit there. There's John talking with Bob Seek. Moment there. And there is Gunter Wendt was there, all right, and said hi to John. 15 years ago, we're looking at everybody here. So just give you some behind the scenes of some things that happened here at our museum we're so proud of. The astronauts who passed away, whose handprints we didn't get, like Gus Grissom, Sandy Storm did this beautiful relief, and they do look like the astronauts. Some of these things don't, but they really do. There's Neil Armstrong's handprints here in our museum. I'm going to be taking them to the Brevard Astronomical Society meeting tonight, where everyone can put their handprints on Neil Armstrong forever in history. as the first human to set foot on another celestial body. There's Charlie Mars getting Neil's handprints cast in bronze there. It was done in 1999, and he was very hard to get nailed down, and I think this is in an apartment that Neil had in Washington, D.C. Something that I learned, world VIPs like Neil Armstrong called to Washington so frequently that instead of renting a hotel, they just end up renting an apartment for a good fee that somebody's probably going to pay on there. So there's Jim Lovell's handprints there when he died a while back. Jim Lovell, about last year, somebody's putting flowers there on our deceased astronauts. We also have a fallen tribute pylon there of people who lost their lives at Kennedy Space Center from car wrecks, crane wrecks, or even suicide. A few of them. Huh?
No, not suicide.
Not suicide? Oh, okay.
We had 3 people went into the aft compartment with no oxygen.
Yeah, Marty's corrected me there, but we have had some space workers commit suicide. But some fell off of a gantry before they had great safety there. Irregardless of that, there's our beautiful look of Spaceview Park from across the lagoon there. Hope that you all get a chance to come and walk through there. The city has really kept it up and kept it clean. In the last year, we had a horrible problem with vagrants there, but that's all cleared up now, and the people that live in the condo can walk their dogs there and such. But let's look around this thing real quick, where you've got the first mathematical problem at the upper left by Humboldt, who was the LOR, yeah, lunar orbit rendezvous. Instead of lunar rendezvousing around the Earth and going with the lander, you go to the moon and then have a rendezvous around the moon. And Humboldt from Iowa, a professor, came up with that. That's so cool. That's there. You got workers on the assembly line. You got the depiction of the orbital and processing facility there, workers around that. Then you've got the history of Gemini and Mercury, learning things, the classic spacewalk of Ed White featured there. Then you've got the launch of Apollo 8 to the moon, all right, and the moon in the background. And then you've got the historic walkout of Apollo 11 and the rocket illuminated in the upper left there with all the workers in the launch control, and the launch of Apollo 11 to the moon. And then, of course, the recovery and the landing, so important, the docking, the recovery ships, the communications. And then the wonderful celebration of America with newspapers. Look at all those newspapers showing there, Marty. I guess if Sandy redid this, she'd have to have a cell phone there and a smart tablet and God knows what to depict today's electronic world. And then, of course, the pride of the American Eagle and stepping off the limb, Neil Armstrong as Mike Collins orbits and Buzz Aldrin awaits his turn to go to the moon. A great moment for America. The rover on the moon depicting the future and so forth. Al Kohler and I talked yesterday about, Doug Forrest said Jim Lovell's not dead. Yeah, Jim Lovell's not dead. That's right. Frank Borman's. Why were those roses on Jim Lovell there? Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Doug Forrest. Jim Lovell is the oldest living, isn't he? Fact check that for me. I'm not sure. I'm sure Doug's right, but Dave Stangy's watching. Robert Law. I mentioned all you guys on there watching today. He's going to fact check that.
I know Lovell's alive.
Yeah, Lovell's alive. Yeah, right. Okay, he's 95. Yeah, Lovell's the oldest living spaceman. And so why was that? As you guys get to look at these beautiful sandy storm around the.
The flowers could have been there for someone else.
Yeah, the flowers could have been for somebody else. Maybe it was his birthday. It does say Lovell. So. but he's alive. All right. Thank you for correcting me on that. We do not have artificial intelligence on this show, so every mistake made is mine. So, but, and what is this to end our little program today? Eclipse of the moon over the Apollo iconic emblem that we have out at Spaceview Park. So, hope that you all enjoyed that little look back at the Apollo and mashup of Pluto, Apollo Soyuz Test Project, Skylab, and even a little bit of the approach and landing test of the shuttle. All happening in July, all exciting things that took America to the next level in our space program. And each and one of those events I outlined today was certainly something proud, an accomplishment that no other country's done. Think of it that way, all right? So thank you, everybody, for watching today. We're going to have two guests tomorrow. We're going to have Bert Dick of the National Space Society here, and we're going to have freelance professional photographer Julian Leake here to talk about him photographing the Apollo era launches and some other shuttles. So hopefully I can sit back and listen to these two former guests on Stay Curious, Bert Dick and Julian Leake, share a little bit of space knowledge with you all about their careers and things that they do to keep everybody staying curious. So you have that to look for tomorrow. So thank you all for being here today. I'm Marquette saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.